Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions, the worlds of music, TV, film, pop culture, news, sports, lifestyle, music, everything really depending on the guest we talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. My guest is a musician, songwriter, guitarist, bass specifically. She is a member of the band The GoGos, which is the first all-female band to hit #1 in the U.S., and her memoir, All I Ever Wanted, a rock and roll memoir, is available, and it is a big hit. Kathy Valentine is with us. Kathy, welcome to Popternative.
Hey, nice to be here. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, we'll get into the memoir, but the thing I want to talk about is your kind of introduction and you kind of joining the Go-Go's is an interesting story because, you played guitar, but, you were playing bass in the Go-Go's, and that was an instrument you weren't kind of familiar with. Like, you didn't play bass at all. You had to learn the songs. That's an interesting kind of introduction to the Go-Go's for yourself.
Yes, it is an interesting story, and it's probably why I put it as the prologue to my book, because it was such a random thing that happened and yet so life-changing. And the story I tell is that I had been playing guitar since I was a young girl. Well, not a young girl, like a young teenager, I should say. And I go to LA to make it in the music business from Austin, Texas, where I'm from. And I'm playing guitar in a band and trying to make it. I've been out there almost 2 years and not sure what's going to happen next. And I happen to be at the famous Whiskey A Go-Go on Sunset Strip. And I run into the guitar player from the Go-Go's, and she just kind of corners me and says, "We have 8 sold out shows in 5 days and our bass player can't do it. Do you play bass?" And I was like, yeah, yeah, I can do it. So, from then on, it was a complete, I basically I'd never had such focus. And for the next 5 days, it included 2 band rehearsals. And all the rest of that time was me learning their entire set and how to play the bass. And from then on, they asked me to stay. And that's where I ended up being for the
rest was history, basically. I mean, you're putting together this book, you're writing. I mean, 2-part question because I find it very interesting. I mean, when in your career or your time as a musician with the Go-Go's did the first kind of idea bells rung about the first idea of writing a memoir? That's my first kind of question. And second, I mean, there's so many kind of cool things that happen in your life. There's a lot of going on. What was your process of kind of picking and choosing what to put in the book and what not to put in the book, Kathy?
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't think to write the book until when I wrote it, basically, sometime around the mid 2000s, like 2012, 13, I started thinking I would like to be a writer and how to transition, how to introduce myself. I've done so many things in my life, but all I'm really known for is being in the Go-Go's, despite a lot of pretty great accomplishments. So I thought that if I wanted to be known as a writer, the best place to start would be to write my own story, which I knew was a compelling and interesting story. And it's the one that only I could do. So I had a couple of aims with this book. Number one, to show people that I was a good writer so that they would be open to reading other books that I might want to write. And number two, to tell a story that isn't often told about, a young girl who decides to make it in the music business and kind of manages to succeed in doing that. And I achieved my aims pretty well, I think. I'm really proud of the book. I did the best job I could. And I knew that it had to be very honest and open, and yet be able to resonate with people on a human level. Because not everyone has heard of the Go-Go's. I don't know who hasn't. Not everyone.
I was about to say, I don't know. I'm not sure if we can agree with that at all.
But not everybody, I'll say not everybody is a big fan, but you don't have to be to enjoy this book, because it's really a human story and it's a coming of age story. And there's so much that anybody could relate to. And at the same time, you do get to kind of look behind the curtain and see what it's like to be in a band a lot of people really are curious. What is it like to be in a band? What is it like to make it in the music business? What's it like to be 22 years old and, recording an album that goes to number one and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And then the other part of your question was like, how do you go about it? That's a great question because I found that being a singer, I mean, not a singer, a songwriter and a musician, I had decades of experience and trusting my judgment about what do you leave in, what do you take out. That's the craft of art is
Hmm.
where to stop, where do you put something in, what notes do you leave in, what lines do you leave in. So that helped me having that experience.
I find it very interesting because you mentioned about the Go-Go's, and a lot of people might not be a fan, but a lot of people know about the Go-Go's. I find it interesting, and this is I wanted to kind of you're doing a lot of interviews. A lot of members of the Go-Go's do interviews. It's a lot of kind of the same questions that are asked. So I kind of wanted to kind of come up with some questions that you might not have been asked. And one thing what I find interesting is you know I was a communications major, but I did a minor in music, and we did a lot of popular music classes, and we had a lot of classes about different times of music. And the Go-Go's was a band that was like mentioned in our class, part of curriculums. You know what I mean? Like it was. That's pretty cool, right? To think about it, that you're part of like musical history in that sense.
It's really cool. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't feel very blessed and proud of our legacy. And, the Go-Go's have a documentary out that does a wonderful job of highlighting that.
Unbelievable. Sorry, people need to check the documentary out for
It's
my
so
viewers.
good.
Like you have to watch it.
It's so good, and it really, I think, gets our story out there, and it's a really great story. It's a lot of people don't realize that this was an organic band that just came together the way a rock and roll band should come together. Just on the
Absolutely.
streets, a bunch of friends going, "Why can't we do this?" Um, I joined later on, way before we made our record, but I had been playing in bands in Texas and England. So to me, the Go-Go's just represented what I had been looking for as soon as I
Yes.
started playing. But that's so cool that we get mentioned in these music classes.
Absolutely. It's cool to think about. And it's funny because yeah, like you said, you're not an original member of the Go-Go's, but you kind of joined when kind of one can make an argument it kind of all kind of started. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of that's an interesting kind of situation because technically you are not an original member, but you were involved with a lot of the big kind of prime years, they would say, of the Go-Go's.
Oh, yeah, I would say that. I mean, there was only three members that started the band, and then Charlotte was added, Gina was added, and I was added. And it was when the chemistry of the five of us was completed. That's the band that the people think of as the Go-Go's.
There's a lot of songs of the Go-Go's that people like listen to. The one song, and I wanted kind of your opinion on this. I mean, like "We Got the Beat" is one of the most prolific kind of songs of the Go-Go's. Everyone kind of loves that song. I think it's kind of a statement song, especially with the drums, the bass lick. There's a lot going on in the song. I just want, from your opinion, why do you think specifically, as someone who kind of performs that song, why that song is so popular year after year? We got the beat, Kathy.
Well, it's got a lot of exuberance that, it's the qualities of being like an anthem, like kind of a almost an empowering song. It's fun. It's not full of rage. It's full of more kind of celebrating life, and that tends to translate. And I see, young kids just. I get videos. People send me videos, or I see them on social media all the time of little children, 3, 4 years old, just jumping around and pretending to play or hold microphones or hairbrushes, even pretending to sing "We Got the Beat." And also, "Vacation" is a really popular one, and "Our Lips Are Sealed." So we have a handful of hits that people identify with the band, but it's surprising how many deep cuts are favorites too. I just did a recover a re-release, a cover of "Beneath the Blue Sky," which is a
Mhm.
lot of fans' favorite song. And I thought, okay, I'm going to redo it and release that a couple of weeks ago with my daughter singing on it with me.
Wow.
So the band, one thing I like is the musical on Broadway. really that we had a very successful run on Broadway, and it was actually it was in production with high schools and regional theaters
Yeah.
for in over 200 venues when the pandemic hit. And that musical was interesting because they went and picked a lot of deep cuts off of all the albums, and it made me
Yeah.
hear music in a whole different way.
That I'm not just saying that. That was actually my next question. I was gonna bring up the Broadway musical. So you're like a psychic. You know what I was gonna say.
I do that a lot. I'm like, okay, I just ruined your question.
Well, it's one of those things too where you mentioned the documentary is out, and that's a fantastic documentary. There's rumblings here and there about, they have made a lot of biopics about a lot of like historical bands over the years. Bohemian Rhapsody, Motley Crue's The Dirt on Netflix. I mean, you know what I mean? There's been rumblings. There could be a GoGos biopic that kind of gets shot. That would be a lot. That would be really, really cool to see. Have you ever thought about maybe who would play Kathy Valentine if a Go-Go's biopic was ever shot, Kathy?
No, I don't think about that stuff. I'll leave that to the experts.
Yeah, but I mean, does that ever have you talked to members of the band? Like that could happen. You know what I mean? You never know. People could want to kind of share your story in like the biopic kind of way. Your story was shared in the documentary, but it's a very big. There's a lot of things that are going on. It's a very important band, the Go-Go's. Ever thought about that?
Well, we've been approached many times over the years about every possible project you could imagine. So yeah, it has come up, but right now the documentary's only been out less than a year, and
Yeah.
that's doing such a fantastic job of getting our story out there. So we're always open for offers.
Absolutely. I mean, the title of your memoir is All I Ever Wanted. That is the title. So, simple question. Has it been all you ever wanted?
It's an ironic title because when I picked it, it was the perfect title because I wrote Vacation. I brought vacation to the band. The key line in Vacation is vacation, all I ever wanted. But that title, not only did it link me to my most signature trademark song, but it encompassed the real feeling behind the sentiment of the book, which was not only did all I ever want was to make it in a band and kind of make my mark in the music business, but also to have that feeling. To me, being in a band represented belonging and feeling like I was in a family. The way I'm
Absolutely.
raised, my readers will see the context of why this band was so important to me and why losing it was so devastating when they see the context of where I came from and some of the darkness and sadness of my adolescence and how
Yes.
music saved me. Rock and roll literally saved me. And so all I ever want. So, but here's the irony: writing the book, I started realizing, you've always kind of just enjoyed being in the band. Everything, all my energy, all my focus has always been for an entity of a band. And between the book, and the soundtrack I did, and I've kind of started being Kathy Valentine for the first time in my career, and I'm really enjoying it because there is so much more than playing bass on We Got the Beat to my career,
Absolutely.
to my abilities, to my talent, to my message. And one of the messages I'm really interested in putting out there is that aging it's a real mind screwy type of thing, and we're told that we're kind of led to believe that as you get older, you're supposed to be the person that can't even figure out how to use your phone, right? And
Right.
that's not the deal. I mean, I'm turning 62, and I am just as curious and open and filled with wonder and interested in the world and learning. And I'm getting a college degree and writing a book. I've acted in a movie. I'm doing keynote speeches. So I like that to be part of my message too, that you don't have to, you can pick up an instrument. I did this master class for songwriting and playing guitar and bass. And I had so many people in that class that had just started playing an instrument in their 50s. And that's the sort of message I want to put out. That it's never, you can start doing anything, anytime. Don't think that it's all got to be in your youth. We're vital.
Absolutely. No, I mean, you're wearing many hats. Did you kind of know that you were going to be someone that was going to wear many hats? Like, I mean, at one point you kind of know, like with me, like I do a lot of different things. I kind of knew I was going to always do a lot of different things.
I think I never realized how much I had limited myself by hanging on to that one dream, which, when I was a young girl, I was just this rock and roll fan. I mean, I was a teenager in the 70s. So who am I looking up to? David Bowie, T-Rex, the Stones, the Who, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, it's just all rock and roll. Jimi Hendrix, Cream. I was just Deep Purple, rock and roll through and through. And when I decided that I wanted to do that, that became like all I wanted was to be in a band. And I knew I didn't want to be the star. I didn't want to be Mick Jagger. I didn't want to be the front person. So I held on to that being what I want to do for so long. And I managed to succeed at it that I kind of just kept, when the Go-Go's broke up, all I could think was like, I got to do it again. I got to get another band and make it again in another band.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I ever realized how limiting that was. And I'm glad now starting in my 50s that I started, I maybe if I don't have many regrets, but maybe one is that I didn't wear more hats sooner.
No, for sure. And you mentioned vacation. I just want to say for me, kind of growing up in the 90s, I don't know if it was like the original version of the Go-Go's, but maybe it was like a version, but I remember a Nickelodeon show, Rugrats, had a, they had in the Las Vegas vacation special, they used vacation in the intro. I used to love that.
Oh, you didn't love it as much as me. I probably needed the money really bad.
Oh, that was awesome. Kathy, thank you so much for coming on Popternative. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everything you have done for rock and roll music. I really mean that.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for having me. I hope your listeners check out the book.
Yeah, so the book is out. People can also watch the documentary. They can follow you on social media. Can you plug away quickly so everyone can check it out?
Yes, I'm on Twitter. I'm very active. I do my own social media. I like interacting with people. So I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a website, kathyvalentine.com, that I need to update if you go there. I'm around and doing lots of press for my book and just kind of living life and waiting for things to get better.
Amazing. Well, seriously, thank you so much. And they will get the book, and they can get the book like on Amazon. Like, where can they get the book?
Yeah, I mean, I always encourage people to support, indie bookstores and businesses that are struggling. But if you can't find it there, by all means, please go online to your big supplier and just get it. And again, I stress that it's a literary memoir. It's not a tell-all. It's not all about the dirt and the kind of salacious sensationalist stuff. It's a story that I think will make you have all the feels.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, it's just Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.